So Keith Haring was born on May 4th, 1958 in Reading, Pennsylvania, and was raised in nearby Kutztown, Pennsylvania. He developed a love for drawing at a very early age, learning basic cartooning skills from his father and from popular culture around him, such as Dr. Seuss and Walt Disney. Throughout his childhood, Haring really wasn't interested in the art in museums. He found it too formal. Instead, he preferred the more unconventional art created by pop artists like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein. Eventually, Haring moved to New York City and enrolled in the School of Visual Arts. And in New York, Haring found a thriving alternative art community that was developing outside the gallery and museum system in the downtown streets, the subways, and the spaces in clubs and former dance halls. As a student at the School of Visual Arts, Haring experimented with performance, video, installation, and collage, but he always maintained a strong commitment to drawing, and ultimately that's what he's known for. Throughout his career, he devoted much of his time to public works, which often carried social messages. Haring was diagnosed with AIDS in 1988, and in 1989, he established the Keith Haring Foundation, with its mandate being to provide funding to AIDS organizations and children's programs, and to expand the audience for Haring's work and spread awareness. I mean, there's so much to say about Haring's short but iconic career, so let's just dive into some of his art. In the late 70s and the early 80s is when Haring really found his signature style. This piece is part of a series of manifestos created in 1983 for the Montreux Jazz Festival, which is one of the most important musical events in Europe, and it's been held every year on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland since 1967. Haring is known all over the world for his stylized, simple, and very colorful figures that made his art very immediate and impactful. Montreux depicts a stylized man creating a spiral that refers to the exciting melody of jazz music. Andy Mouse is a characteristically playful set of prints and a testament to the relationship between Keith Haring and Andy Warhol. Warhol's influence on Haring was undeniable. In Haring's own words, he said, "Warhol's life and work made my work possible. He was the first real public artist, and his art and his life changed our conception of art and life in the 20th century." Here, Haring pays tribute to Warhol, depicting him wearing Mickey Mouse shorts, itself a tribute to his early education, which began with copying the Walt Disney films, and then his trademark spiky wig. And printed in 7 colors, the Andy Mouse series is significant for its formal qualities as well as its subject. Though Haring had experimented with print techniques such as lithography in the late 1970s, it wasn't till here in 1983 that he began making screen prints. And it was adopted from the world of commercial printing. This method offered a way of creating multiple images with vivid colors and little variation between prints. And this move was undoubtedly due in part to the medium being popularized by Warhol. Haring was well known for creating artwork relating to social and political causes, and political activism really pulsed through Haring's entire career. And it was the AIDS crisis that really sharpened his work's focus in his final years. So this iconic 1989 poster is typically punchy, with the 3 figures covering their eyes, ears, and mouth, and its memorable slogan, "Ignorance equals fear." Haring had a gift for images with direct impact. Here, the stakes had been raised by the American government's inadequate response and failing to expand awareness of the AIDS epidemic. And this poster uses coded imagery from a painting of the same year, "Silence Equals Death" was the name of that painting. And so you can see this pink triangle was an LGBTQ symbol created and provides different layers and contexts for this poster. Depicted in the artist's graphic linear style, Haring's Chocolate Buddha series consists of 5 prints rendered in contrasting colors such as red, blue, orange, and pink. And each print features a variety of figures, creatures, and objects, their limbs kind of being intertwined to create these complex symmetrical forms. And completed the year before Haring's death, this series combines the artist's clear line figurative style with more complex and integrated compositions to form a series of really abstracted images. So he is recalling styles of the ancient world, such as Eastern mandalas and Australian Aboriginal art. The Chocolate Buddha series also shows influence from the European modernists, such as Miro, Klee, and Matisse, some artists that we've highlighted in the past. And this is notable from the way in which the prints focus on flat, richly colored shapes and patterns that play out across the image surface. The Chocolate Buddha series has this kinetic energy produced through his use of jarring colors and complex patterns. So these are two of Haring's most iconic images and are both from his Icon series in 1990. When Haring's career started, it was mainly graffiti art in New York City subway stations, as you can see at the bottom. He purposely chose to draw on black panels with chalk, and the drawings brought a human touch to the kind of dingy and dirty subway stations. But what began as simple black and white figure drawings evolved throughout his career into these complex compositions crammed with dancing and pulsating figures. And overall, the characteristics of Haring's drawings included simplified and stylized figures, bold lines, and these figures often surrounded by rhythmic lines that make them appear to vibrate or move. And he really created his own visual language where his symbols appear repeatedly in many different artworks. This type of pictorial writing system is known as pictographs. And his common symbols include pyramids, dancing figures, spaceships, and in this case, dogs and babies. So as Haring became famous, his artwork obviously became increasingly more and more expensive. So to ensure that his art continued to be available at affordable prices to the general public, he created the Pop Shop in New York City. That's what he called it. So at the Pop Shop, he sold prints, stickers, buttons, and various other objects with his artwork on it. And some criticized him for commercializing his work, but when he was asked about this, he said, "I could earn more money if I just painted a few things and jacked up the price. My shop is an extension of what I'm doing in the subway stations, breaking down the barriers between high and low art." So the Pop Shop remains open online and the profits go to the Keith Haring Foundation. And his Pop Shop series brings together some of the artist's most recognizable motifs, rendered in, his classic simplified and linear style filled with bright colors. So Haring's work appealed to many different types of people. His images are whimsical, humorous, and somewhat mysterious. This collection of Pop Shop prints are represented through retrospect. Haring's symbolic figures reflect upon birth, death, violence, racism, these overarching themes. And his linear style enhances modern forms of communication, such as billboards and advertisements. So featuring a strip of 24 individual scenes, retrospect comprises a host of Haring's repeated emblems. We've got kneeling figures, the babies, the dogs, and angels serve as these focal points for Haring's exploration of the socio-political threats that he often spoke out about. Keith Haring completed his final print series, Best Buddies, just 10 days before dying from AIDS-related complications in 1990. The Best Buddies motif, which first appeared in Haring's work in 1987, depicts two figures hugging with rays emanating from their embrace. And like many of his iconic symbols, Best Buddies is perfectly uncomplicated, inviting viewers to create their own interpretations of the scene. Haring's figures, they have no specified race, gender, or sexual orientation, and they instead appear as anonymous emblems of universal love and acceptance. Haring dedicated the motif to Best Buddies, a charity that assists people living with developmental disabilities, and the organization has continued to use this image as its logo ever since. Embodying Haring's guiding philosophies about art and activism, Best Buddies is a primary example of the artist's enduring impact on the social justice causes that animated his career and his life. And for all the sneaker fanatics here, these are some collaborations that showcase Haring's art. So his foundation is now responsible for all of these collaborations. And there have been many shoe collaborations, as you can see, as well as clothing items and other household goods. So Keith Haring, he had a short but iconic career and is still today one of the most popular artists in pop culture. Thank you.